Welcome to Kings of War Wednesday. What attracts me to a tournament? Hello there, welcome to episode 6 of Kings of War Wednesday, hot on the heels of Mantic's blockbuster and controversial announcement that Clash of Kings 2022 will take place in London. In a totally unrelated video, I'm going to go over the factors that determine whether or not I will attend a tournament, or attempt to attend a tournament. And this is going out live, so if anyone's watching this at the moment, feel free in the comments, let me know some of the factors that you take into account when considering tournament attendance. So obviously, a little bit inspired by Mantic's announcement, and certain geographical sections of the community slightly outraged that they've chosen to take Clash of Kings all the way down to London, which, as you know, is not very central, and we'll see whether that works out for them, whether it is the biggest one ever, whether the fact that it's in London is going to attract perhaps a better international contingent. We shall see. But let's go into my personal factors then. So some of these images are going to be pictures from various tournaments I've attended, some gameplay pictures, and then occasionally when we get to one of my topics we're going to see some of this. So number one, we've got travel distance. How far am I going to have to go to attend this tournament? What kind of transportation will I require to attend this tournament? Is it in the middle of some kind of Arctic wasteland where you're going to need maybe dogs and a sleigh to get there? Or is it just in the middle of a city centre where perhaps car access for some people isn't the easiest and you're more reliant on public transport? For me personally, when it comes to distance and location, obviously everyone wants events to be as close to them as possible. So considering I'm now in Nottingham, anything central around the middle of the UK, pretty handy. Also, for me, the north is quite good, and I don't mind travelling to the north. It's very easy for me to catch trains from where I am. So anywhere, for example, if I can pop out of a train station and walk right into the venue, then if there's a direct line from Nottingham, perfect, I'll take that. If it's up north, then I have family in Manchester, so I have the option of staying with them while I'm up there. So it's quite easy for me to get to events up there via public transport. Lazy Pirate Painting is in the chat, hello there. So we're discussing distance at the moment. How far are you willing to travel to go to a tournament? I don't know if I'd be willing to go to one in the middle of an Arctic wasteland, unless you consider parts of the UK an Arctic wasteland, which at some times of the year maybe they qualify. But for the most part, it's going to have to be, unless it's a really special event, it's going to have to be somewhat within a reasonable distance. Probably, considering my connections to the north or Midlands for me. So those are the locations that I would mainly consider. If it's in the south, it would have to be doing something very special to attract me down there, purely from a distance point of view, depending how south it is, obviously. And for travel, if it's got easy access by trains, that's the dream for me. A lot of people prefer to travel by car, so anything that suits both of those, going to do pretty well, I think. So a lot of these will tie together, these topics, by the way, because one big part of distance and method of transport is the cost involved, which is going to be coming up in another section shortly. But obviously the further you're travelling in general, the more it's going to cost you. If you're having to travel to another country, obviously there's additional costs on top of that. And for the most part, trains are needlessly expensive. In this country anyway, I don't know if they are in other countries, but here, train prices have just been through the roof. Not ideal. So, another picture of a game there, and you can see we've moved swiftly onto this topic, on the topic of expense. Money. So, not only how much does it cost to physically attend the event, how much does it cost to pay for a ticket? Some people think that events undercharge. I'm of the opinion that some of them have been doing over the years. Some of them, though, a little bit on the expensive side for my liking. It depends what you get out of it. If you're already having to pay for travel and accommodation and such, then it's often not a vast additional amount on top of those. It's usually less of a cost than travel for a lot of people. However, I've seen tournaments that charged, it's the lowest I've ever seen. I don't know if I've ever seen £10 for a Kings of War event. I'm pretty sure I've seen £12. I've seen some very inexpensive event tickets. I can think of specifically some at Black Dragon Miniatures, which I assume is doable because it's in a shop. So people are also going to be spending money in the shop while they're there. So it's probably just the lower price gets more people into the event who then spend money in the shop. So probably a good idea since it's the shop that are actually putting on the event. One thing that I look for in the price is food included. If it is, I do not approve. I would like food to be an optional extra. I'm sure there are reasons that it's not. Some of them perfectly innocent, some of them potentially nefarious, which we'll get to in a moment. But I'm sure it's just easier if everyone's just paying the same price. Easier to manage for the tournament organisers. And the food, if that's not included, people would then be able to see exactly how much you're charging for the food, how much the ticket price is going towards the food. And for some people, that might be fine if they're very transparent organisers. Some people, I'm not saying anyone's necessarily done this, but it would certainly be an option for people if they're using the fact that food is included as an extra way to squeeze more money out of people. They could be disguising the fact that they're overcharging for food by rolling it all into the ticket price. I don't know for a fact that anyone's ever done that, but that's something that my brain, it sets it off immediately when I see that food is included as something that people could do, theoretically. And having very specific dietary requirements, and in general just being a bit of a fussy eater, I always bring my own food anyway. So occasionally, if it's an expensive event, I have actually contacted the organisers directly and said, hey, I'm going to be bringing my own food, I don't require a meal, can you shave something off the ticket price for me? And occasionally they've gone along with it. Not always though. If it's a 2-day event in particular, I'm more likely to do that because the cost of the food is going to be much steeper than a 1-day event. So anyone who's watching this live, by the way, drop in the factors that you consider when attending a tournament and I will assess them. So financially, what else is there to consider other than the travel and the event price and the local accommodation? If you're having to stay somewhere, is that going to be expensive? Probably. It depends where it is and how close to the event that you book. So, for example, this year's Clash of Kings, I didn't go because I'd left it quite late when deciding whether to attend or not. And I thought, you know what, I think I will attend. And I was looking around at the various accommodation options on the map, and they were all obscenely expensive. I'm sure they would have been cheaper had I booked further in advance, but they were so expensive that I decided not to go in the end. So, something to consider getting there early to save a bit of money. And financial considerations as well. If you're going to be buying anything while you're there, if you're, for example, into buying drinks from the bar of the venue, that's something you'd have to consider as well, what kind of prices they have. So, lazy pirate painting. I like food to be included as one less thing to worry about. That is true, and I can understand that. Logistically, it's just easier if everyone pays the same, and then later on they send out an email or something asking what your food preference is, or they just serve up a load of food and you take what you want. I can understand that that's easier, but it is taking extra cash from people who have no intention of eating the food that's provided, unfortunately. So, next topic. Nice picture of someone pointing at my goblins there. So, the next one, as you can see, is someone asleep doesn't look like they're getting much sleep, so they're probably in a grotty little hotel. Is it going to require an overnight stay? So if it's a one-day event that's within reasonable distance, probably won't have to stay overnight, then that is the dream for me. Only ties up one day, meaning I can do other stuff on the other days. Doesn't take up the whole weekend. If it's a bit longer distance and it's one day, maybe it would require only a single night staying somewhere, which again is preferable. If it's a long distance, then probably it's going to be 2, or in some cases maybe even 3 nights staying away somewhere, which goes back to cost again, racks up there quite seriously, and it just takes a lot of time as well. 2-day events, while fun playing all those games, I would prefer to have more games crammed into a single day, but I understand that's not everybody's cup of tea. I know some people get pretty drained after a couple of games in a day. I always find that I get kind of energized as the day goes on, and by about game 3 or 4, if you have that many in a day, then that's usually when I'm like getting into my groove. So if it was up to me, it would be like 5 or 6 games a day, and then that's the end of the event. So, and there are people as well who don't like to have too many games in a day for social reasons, because they don't want it to take up too much time, and they want it spread over the whole weekend so they can go out drinking or what have you, have a meal in the evening perhaps. For me, the gaming is generally enough socialising for me, so I don't typically go in for all that. And Lazy Pirate Painting, I prefer one-day events as well. Yes, I think they're criminally underrated, one-day events. There are some people who swear by 2-day events. I'm not one of them. I much prefer the single day. As many games crammed in there as possible though. That is my preference. So, if I'm having to stay somewhere for an event, I would prefer it to be somewhere that I'm not having to pay extortionate rates for. So, again, if it's in the north around Manchester and I can stay with family, for me, personally, that's ideal. And if it's around the Midlands, then even for a 2-day event round here, I probably wouldn't have to stay overnight anywhere. Quite likely, depending on exactly where it is. That my undead halflings in all their glory. Surely one of the glorious triumphs that I accomplished with that army, and not one of the crushing defeats, although I can't remember exactly just from this picture. So the next one, the venue. Is it a crusty, run-down old shack, or is it a luxurious, air-conditioned gaming paradise? Have I been to both of those? I probably have actually, because where have I been that could be described as a luxurious gaming paradise? I think maybe when I went to Adepticon to a Warhammer tournament, that could have been described as a luxury gaming paradise. That was in a very vast hotel complex with massive rooms and very nice, very spacious. Lots of the venues that I've been to in this country have been a bit substandard in one way or another. Most of them don't look like this. Some of them have just been too cold. For example, I went to one that was in a church, actually inside the church when it was a bit chilly. And I've heard tales of an event that was even worse though, that was in the dead of winter in an even colder and draftier building. So I don't think I've had the absolute worst. I've been to venues that were incredibly warm in the summer, with windows in the ceiling, with the sun beating down on everybody and causing a few people to melt by the end of the day. And a couple of people were actually, I don't know if they were exactly praising the Lord, but they were pleased that they'd lost their penultimate game so that then they could move down the table, which was in a little side room, the bottom tables, which wasn't nearly as hot because there were no windows allowing the sun to get in. So venue has to be a factor when deciding whether to attend a tournament or not. Is it one that's going to cause you too much discomfort? I think for most people, they'll probably attend regardless of the venue if all the other factors are met, and then if it's a bit terrible, they'll complain about it afterwards. But they'll probably still go. I don't know of many people that have specifically not attended a tournament because the venue's not very nice. It's usually one that people will go ahead with and then just complain later. Next. Oh, what was that picture? More of the undead halflings. Next. So, what prizes are on offer? Not just trophies, of course, although most of us do enjoy trophies. Are there trophies for multiple placings at the event? Are there trophies for other awards, best painted, best sportsmanship, and so on? Or is there just one trophy for first place? And I mentioned the Black Dragon miniatures events being inexpensive before, and they usually only have a trophy for first place, which is probably part of the package that you're buying into when you attend a tournament that's not expensive like that. Some of the really expensive tournaments I've been to, some of the higher end, have had lots and lots of very big and elaborate trophies and other prizes as well. Prizes don't have to be in the form of trophies, often they can be prize support that's donated by third parties. And also, under this bracket, I would put in whether it's a Masters ranked event, so whether it's going to go on the official rankings page, which is a big selling point to me. It's at the stage, for Kings of War, I don't know whether I would actually attend an event unless it was going to be ranked. And it's not even through pure competitiveness to try and fire myself up the rankings. I just like my tournament progress to be tracked like that on the website. I like to be able to look at my stats at the end of the season. So I think that could potentially be a deal breaker for me. So I would probably not consider something like a doubles event if it wasn't ranked. I'm not sure if there is a facility for doubles events to be ranked now or not. I haven't really looked into that. But that's something I probably wouldn't consider unless there was something really compelling about it that encouraged me to do so. But prizes, ranking points, they can be important. Trophies, they don't have to be trophies. Anything really, even a certificate, something that you can put on your shelf or on your wall. And preferably for the top 3 places and a couple of extra bonus awards as well. If it's a really small tournament, then just tiny little trophies would do. They don't have to be expensive. You can get packs of just little like plastic golden trophies for really, really low cost and then do something with them. Stick something on them if it's a really inexpensive event. So it's not difficult to do. So that can be important. This doesn't look like a fun situation for my Greater Obsidian Golem at a tournament there. And finally, the final point for me personally, whether attending an event, what factors do I consider? The people that are going to be there. I have been known to look down the players list, and if it's a tournament I'm on the fence about, maybe it's a little bit far away, then I'll look and assess who else is going to be attending. If it's got lots of people I know there, lots of people that I know I'll have fun games against, then probably I'm more likely to lean towards going to the event. And I'm sure some people will have a look and see that a particular tournament field looks a bit weak. Maybe a lot of the top ranked players aren't at that particular event, and they'll decide that now they're going to go because it's more likely that they'll get a high placing. Or if you're somebody who's really into the hobby aspect of it, if you've got a choice between 2 tournaments on a weekend and one of them features some notoriously top painters who are guaranteed to sweep up all of the painting prizes, then you're probably not going to want to go during their participation, so you'll probably pick a different tournament. For me personally, that's not too much of a factor. That's more likely to determine what kind of army I take. If I really think I'm in with a chance at winning a painting award, and I see that there's a top-notch painter who's going, and I know for a fact they're going to win, then I may start to lean away from certain units that I was thinking of taking purely for aesthetic reasons, potentially. So for me personally, that could be a factor. But generally, if I see a nice array of people, a lot of which I already know, and I know they're friendly gamers, then I'm more likely to select that tournament for attendance. And is there anyone in the tournament community who I would actively avoid at an event? I don't think so. I can't think of any names off the top of my head of people in the community who I would avoid. I would try to avoid if I saw their name on an attendance list. I have been made aware of people who have questionable ethics on the table, and some of which I've played against and didn't experience any high degree of shenanigans, so I can't say with any certainty that they are accurate reports, but I know that there are people who have said they'll refuse to play against certain other players at events because of past experiences and what they've deemed to be cheating taking place. So the people at an event, definitely a big factor for most of us out there, and that includes me. So I think this is the final picture now, my Abyssal Dwarves. We don't have any more points. Before I go, does anyone have any suggestions for factors, if you want me to weigh in on them? Otherwise, if you're watching this later, drop it in the comments and I'll let you know if it's something I consider that I didn't think of for this, but those are the main key points. So, we've got the travel, the distance, how far away is it, what kind of transport am I going to have to take to get there. We've got how much is it going to cost me to travel there, how much is it going to cost me to stay nearby if required, how much is the entry ticket, is food included, if so, why. Then we've got, is it going to require an overnight stay? Is it going to require 2 or 3 overnight stays? You better really be squeezing all the juice out of that event if it is going to require multiple night stays. Is it multiple game systems in a weekend, for example? That's the kind of thing that could entice me potentially. The venue, is it a crusty rundown old shack or is it something a bit more luxurious? Not too much of a factor for me, because it's not like I'm having to live at the venue. You're only there for a few hours playing games. What are the prizes like? What's on offer? Are there trophies? Is it Masters ranked? And the people attending, is it looking like a friendly crowd? Is it going to be a hyper-competitive bunch? Is there anyone on the list who's maybe got a bad reputation in the community for unsportsmanlike play, something like that? Factors all to be considered. Let me know which of these you take into consideration when deciding whether to attend tournaments, and let's bring up the episode thumbnail again, because I think this is a beast of a thumbnail, this one. This has got to get all the clicks, surely. So, Frederick says, does the TO matter? Someone you know is a quality TO, for instance. Oh, actually, let's get rid of the thumbnail again, because we've got a couple of topics. So, the tournament organiser, does it matter to me? Okay, I don't say a bad TO would put me off going to an event, but a good one, or a good group of TOs, because quite often there'll be more than one person involved in the running of a tournament. If it's someone I have attended multiple events for in the past and they've always been well run, then that's something that could inspire me to pick that event over another one perhaps. But typically I haven't been put off by who's organising the event. It can be a draw, but it won't really push me away. But that's purely because I haven't had any particularly bad TO experiences that I can think of. So maybe that's just good fortune on my part. But let's see. Raphael, do you like themed tournaments with made up units like the ones you painted a model and got award for it? Yes, I like tournaments have a little bit of a twist sometimes. That can be nice. So the 4-foot snake one in question there, they always have the option of 3 or 4 different unique heroes based on the tournament organisers who you can make a model for, paint it, and then potentially win prizes if you get the best one in each category and you use them in each of your games. I'm a fan of themes like that. Tournaments where maybe everyone gets a free giant, something like that. Something that's equal but adds a bit of spice to the event, can be a bit different. You don't necessarily want every single one to be wacky and out there, but it's nice to have that in a few events a year. Raphael, do you have a favourite tournament series? A favourite tournament series? Well, a few years ago I was winning most of my trophies at Northern Kings events. So they're always going to have a special place in my heart for that, because I picked up quite a few trophies in a row at their events. I've also been picking up quite a few Golden Troll trophies as well, and they're always really nice custom trophies, so maybe that push them ahead for the novelty factor of having a unique hand-painted trophy. Those are always nice. Let's see. Rerolling one says, for me, the only reason to go to a tourney is to be social. I love that part. But playing competitive war games, after about an hour, I would pay money to not do it. That doesn't sound like a deeply competitive person there. But yes, a lot of people do attend tournaments purely for the social aspect of it. They're not even that interested in the gaming part. Some people are really heavily into both, and they'll put everything into gaming, and then as soon as the final round of the day is over, they go straight into social beast mode and go out drinking with everybody else. And there are some people that just want to turn up, get through as many games as possible, and then get out of there. And that's me. So, very different ethos. Raphael says, have you ever organised a tournament? No. Would I? Probably. I would definitely like to organise a tournament of some description at some point. I think I have some interesting ideas for them. One idea I often had and threw around that could maybe work for an event is like deciding beforehand who is going to play against who in each round, and going by the rankings to determine that everyone has a fair list of games. Something along those lines I think would be interesting, just to change things up a bit instead of the same old system. I've always wanted to see that. You would need specific numbers of players though, so you could bracket them correctly, and it would get potentially difficult, but it's something I would like to see someone try. So if no one does it, it's something I would definitely look at if I was to ever organise an event. Rerolling ones is all about drinking and hobby. Yes, so another thing about events is going and looking at everyone's hobby, looking at everyone's painted army, display boards, that kind of thing, and showing off your own. That's something a lot of people are really into as well. That's usually a bit of a draw for me as well. Not so much a draw to actually attend the tournament, but a draw to like wander around at lunchtime looking at all the various armies, especially if they're out on display for judging purposes. I like to have a good look. And also, if I'm particularly proud of my armies, I like putting them out. So that's why I'm more likely to lean towards taking, say, my Abyssal Dwarves, who I think are much better painted than my Goblins, if it's an event I want to show them off a bit. If I've got a particularly good list idea for competitive reasons, I'm going to be less concerned about which army I'm taking for aesthetic purposes. But overall, I think I'd like to have a bit of a balance between the hobby side of it, the competitive side of it. Okay, anything else? Or shall we wrap this one up? Let's see. Frederick, I did that once, called it rank and file. It was quite alright. The winner was simply the person who got the most points without climbing up the ladder Swiss style, simply playing in their own bracket. Yes, so the way I would potentially organise it, go by the rankings, have like the first 4 players bracket A, second 4 players bracket B, and so on, and then you would play against one person from each bracket throughout the day. Something along those lines. I just think that would be fun and different, just to change things up a bit. And it would also allow you to know potentially in advance who you're going to play against, which would be quite interesting, I think. Rafael says, do you have challenges at tournaments here in Poland? We can issue a challenge in the first round of a tournament and play against a chosen opponent. Yes, a lot of tournaments do have challenges in the first round, and they're usually accepted. I don't think I've been challenged in the first round. Sometimes I've been forced into particular matchups in the first round if the person I'm getting a lift to a tournament with, for example, gets stuck in traffic and we're late. Then I've had to play against them in the first round because everyone else had to start their games, and then we just like knock 20 minutes off the round time for us or something. That's happened a couple of times at events. So don't think I've been the subject of a challenge, but it does happen. Okay, gonna wrap this one up now. If you've got any further thoughts, what attracts you to a tournament, let me know in the comments. What puts you off a tournament, what repels you, what is going to stop you attending a tournament. Is there anything that's going to stop you? Is there something that will make you lean away from it? If you've got a choice between tournaments, what tips you over the edge one way or the other? And what your favourite tournament experiences, any bad experiences you've had? I've never had any bad, like really sour games, but I have seen a couple of games of Kings of War that almost degenerated into violence at an event. They didn't quite, but I don't feel like they were too far away. And not for quite a while, it should be stated. It's quite a few years ago, that. So, any other thoughts? Drop them in the comments, and I will respond to them as and when. I've got a couple of Kings of War games lined up soon for battle report purposes in the next couple of weeks. So that's going to be exciting, and keep your eyes peeled for those. And next week, maybe if there's no interesting topics that pop up, if Mantic don't announce they're going to be moving any events to, for example, Antarctica, then obviously I would have to talk about that, but otherwise I might dive back into the Clash of Kings book and analyse a few more things in there on video for Clash of Kings, for Kings of War Wednesday, Clash of Kings special. I was thinking of doing like a Clash of Kings month, but I think without actually playing the games against some of the armies, it's kind of silly to deeply analyse them all without any playtesting on my part. So, let's thank the patrons, shall we? So don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done any of those things already, and follow all the social media shenanigans. There's the Facebook group, Twitter, Discord server, and if you want to keep this channel afloat in these dark, turbulent times, to act as a beacon to guide you towards the promised land of the hobby, then feel free to support the Patreon for a small amount if need be. And there are some perks as well. So the music that you may hear on the Andy and Rem show is available at a particular pledge level, which you can find on the Patreon page. So those music files, which are quite a big draw for some people, very catchy. Special thanks to the following patrons: Roshi, Raccoon, Kim, Kevin, John, Guy, David, Cedar, Simon, Nicholas, and Brad. Special thanks to all of you. And all that remains to be said at this point is good night out there, whatever you are.